we're really well positioned. The whole environment feels a lot more sealed. I think this was probably the biggest fail. Automats to be connected to Ethernet. You do need partners. You have to be obsessed. The light reaches the wall. Welcome back to another episode of how we built this amazing green screen virtual production studio. In the previous episodes, we talked about a lot of things, and we talked about technology for the last couple of episodes. And as critical as virtual production technology is for your studio, it's not the only component in having a fully spec'd out studio that you can hire or where you can offer your services. And today we're going to talk about the acoustic treatment in our studio, how we decided to choose this location for acoustic properties, but also what we've done in order to better the acoustics in the studio. When we're looking for a location for our studio, there are a couple of things that we really wanted the location to have in order to kind of like suit our acoustic needs, let's put it like that. One that comes into mind, we've actually seen a couple of warehouses. There are a lot of people that basically take a warehouse and transform it into a studio, but there's a lot of work from the sound perspective in order to treat it, in order to make it as suitable as possible. I'll give you a very simple and silly example, right? So here in UK it rains a lot, and when it rains, if you're in a warehouse that has a metal roof, that's going to resonate in your area, in your building, quite a lot. The raindrops, the wind, everything. So if you want to do a studio in a warehouse, you have to really treat it acoustically, like basically insulate the ceiling, the walls, everything. And I think that was out of the scope of what we wanted to do, because I also wanted to turn around, flip the location quite quickly into a studio. So we wanted a place that had a proper, as new as possible roof, and a proper roof. We wanted a place that is away from any highways and streets, and that has very minimal, basically, outside noises. This location that we're in, one, it just had the roof rebuilt, which is awesome because everything is new and you can't hear any drops or anything, wind or anything on the roof. The other bit, this is an extension of the building. On my left, we actually have an external wall, and this whole bit was built after the original building, which means that because it's an external wall, you can't hear the neighbors, the other unit on the other side, because there's a lot of layers in between the other unit and us. And on the other side, there's a separation to the other side of the building, and there's a hallway and so on. So from that perspective, because we're in a business center here, we're really well positioned to not get a lot of movement and outside noises. On top of that, there's no streets. So the street is that way after layers and layers of building. On where we have the windows and the door, there's no highway or streets or anything like that. So this place by default is really quiet. But we've done a couple of things to further enhance that. And I'm going to talk about the whole acoustic curtains and all of the challenges that we had with that, but also the benefits of our approach. Quick mention, we actually had a connecting door to this other unit on the other side, a unit which potentially will expand in the future. But for now, we didn't want any sound leakage, especially that, because this is an outside wall, having a door there, it just defeats the whole purpose of, the benefit of having an outside wall. We fully insulated that wall. We put a thick layer of mineral wool and then a sheet of acoustic plasterboard, which is thick, is 5 millimeters. So yeah, we've done some tests. We went in the other unit, which is empty for now, went in the other unit and shouted and made loud noises, and it's super okay. You can't hear much. Right, but in a studio, it's not all about rejecting outside noises. It's also about making sure that you don't have a lot of reverberation, so that you don't have to fix in post all of that nasty bouncing of audio, especially when it comes to voices and so on. And right now, what you're hearing, this is the original sound. We haven't treated it at all. And that's because we've installed acoustic panels and curtains and treated this room to help tone down that reverb, that acoustic bouncing on the surfaces. And it's quite important in a studio like ours. Now, the sound is not completely dead, because most of the times in studios like ours, you don't want the sound completely dampened and dead, like it sounds like you're in a closed up vocal booth and recording narration. Now, what you're hearing now, I can easily make it sound like that because there's not huge amount of reverberation to fix. But on the other side, I also don't want, if I need to give it to make the sound a bit more roomy, I don't want it to have it completely dead. Now, again, some might argue and disagree with that. I'm not a professional sound recordist, but for me, this is the perfect middle ground. So what did we actually do in order to decrease these reverbs that we had in here? Because again, the room is quite big, it's quite tall, there's a lot of flat surfaces, and we're getting quite a lot of bounce. Well, the first thing that I wanted to do, we had quite a lot of height to our studio, and this was one of the first things that I've done in January with Ovi when he came in to help me, was for us to create ceiling acoustic panels. When it comes to treating your room, your studio for reverb, there's a couple of options. You can buy foam panels and stick them on the wall, on the ceiling. You can buy acoustic panels, which again have a wooden frame, and then have the right material inside to absorb some of the acoustics. There's pros and cons. Like if you go for panels, like cheaper egg crate type of panels, you're not gonna get the best of results. They're cheap, they're cheap. You can stick it to the ceiling or whatever you want, but again, they don't look that good. One, I think, and also the results are subpar, I would say. And then the other option, it's a quite expensive option. If you go and buy acoustic panels, especially in a bigger room, we have here 15 acoustic panels on the ceiling. It's going to cost you a bit. So we went with a middle ground, which was DIY, basically building our own. And we saved a ton of money by doing that, because we bought mineral wool, rock wool, basically. We bought a lot of that. We bought some wood and also a material that's breathable. And we started assembling. Now, I wanted to mention this. In the studio, I decided there were some things that I could do myself, as in DIY, and then other things that would be better off in getting a professional. And I think that's a critical thinking when you build a studio. Well, yeah, let's say if you're on a very, very tight budget, you will wind up doing everything yourself. If you have a bit of budget, figure out what you can build yourself and what you need to get a professional to do for you. Because if you build everything, what you might wind up is spending a lot more time, and at the end of the day, a lot more money rectifying some of the issues and some of the mishap that you might be experiencing, especially we were talking about the cove in the previous episode. Now, if you're a builder by trade, or if you're good at that, that's a skill of yours, then by all means. But I don't think I am. I think I'm pretty bad at DIY, and that's why I got Ovi over the entire January, my friend, to help me with all of that stuff. There's another thing here. to mention. And there's another reason why we decided to build our own panels rather than buying standard ones. I wanted the panels suspended, and the ceiling is pretty crap, to be fair. Like, the original ceiling of the place is pretty crap. I didn't want it to drill into the ceiling and attach stuff to the ceiling. But I knew that I wanted the ceiling panels not to be stuck to the ceiling, but actually a bit suspended. If you have your panels or your foam or whatnot attached to the ceiling, you're not going to optimize the absorption levels, because the wood and the panels and so on are attached to the flat surface, and it reverberates and bounces back a bit the sound waves. But if it's suspended, it can go through. So the way we built the panels, there's material on the bottom and then there's material on the top towards the ceiling. So then basically the noise gets absorbed better. And the reason why we built it ourselves was because I have these joints on the ceiling, and the best solution for us was to basically hang these acoustic panels from one joint to another. That meant that we needed custom wood panels, custom length wood panels. So we started doing that. It took us, I think, about a week to build all of the panels, as in a week, maybe 2, 3, 4 days. But I'm really happy, and as soon as we put it up, I was just thinking, man, this looks so good. It just still looks industrial, but also in a way stylish. Versus if we would have bought a couple of panels and tried to kind of like hack them onto the ceiling. So I'm super happy with that. And the results are amazing. Even without the acoustic curtains and just the ceiling, I put a couple of tests in this video so you can see the difference with no acoustic treatment and afterwards just with the ceiling panels. And I say just, but it was a lot of work. I've done a lot of research on the best sizes for acoustic panels, the best distance from one acoustic panel to the other, and as well where is the best for them to be positioned. So it wasn't a walk in the park to figure out what I want to build, and it also wasn't that easy to build them. But I'm super proud with the results. And I think this was a huge, massive win, contrasting with the next step that we took in order to better the acoustics in here, which were the acoustic curtains that we have on the walls. And moving on to the actual curtains themselves, I feel that this is one of the gray area. Do you do it yourself? Do you get a specialized industrial curtains company to come and install something for you? I chose for us to do it. And of course, there were downsides and frustrations with that. At the end of the day, it wound up costing me a lot cheaper. Our rail system together with the curtains, I think it cost me around £1,500 to £2,000 to build the curtains. And the quotes that I was getting from various companies that would basically measure, cut, and install for you, so you don't have to do anything, it's like 5,000, 6,000, and so on type of pricing. So we cut a lot of the cost, but again, it wasn't without issues. One, with the industrial curtain rail, I had to do quite a bit of research to figure out what would be the best thing for here and what would work, and kits to buy, to assemble. And it wasn't without challenges. When I measured, I didn't measure it fully correctly, so I needed additional rails, I needed additional joints and runners. Runners are the little wheels that go in the rail that you attach the curtains to. There is challenges, one, in my calculations around what I need here, but two, also because, the company didn't send us this, forgot that. So it was a bit of a headache. And again, that's something that if you work with a company, a servicing company, they would come in, assess the place, and get the measurements and build everything. There's challenges also with how we've assembled the whole thing. The runners don't go super smooth through some of the joint lockers, especially towards the end. But I think we also decided along the way that we're not going to make this into a blackout studio. It's basically the curtains have the acoustic properties, acoustic absorption and deflection properties, and that's why we have them, not to make a blackout. I actually bought these acoustic curtains that you see behind me. They're not curtains. Most of these companies that have done studios before with curtains, the curtain material that they use is some felty material. It has some acoustic properties. What you see behind me are curtains that I bought from Vocal Booth. I think it's vocalbooth.co.uk or something like that. And they're actually acoustic blankets. So they're acoustic blankets. Not only that, they're double acoustic blankets. So I have 2 layers of acoustic blankets to basically double the properties of absorption, of deflection from the outside and so on. So here's an example. Behind me, there's one of the curtains. And behind the curtain, we have our hallway and then the outside door. When I pull the curtain to cover the hallway, it just feels like I've acoustically insulated the studio. The whole environment feels a lot more sealed. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of like you have to feel it as soon as you pull that. It's like, when you're in a room and you have one of those doors that are insulated, acoustically treated and sealed, acoustically sealed, and you close it, and all of a sudden your ears kind of like feel it. You're in a kind of like in a dead space acoustically. So it does feel like that. Not fully, again, because we're not a sound stage per se. But again, when you pull that, you can feel like you're surrounded by absorption, if that makes sense. Now, these curtains are also super heavy because they're acoustic blankets and they're double stitched together. They're super heavy. They're about 12 kilograms, 10, 12, or even more kilograms per 2 meters. So we needed the rail to be super heavy duty, which it is. It's another challenge that I've experienced, and these are my mistakes. A lot of these with the curtains have been my mistakes. When I calculated the height from the ceiling, not from the ceiling, from the joints where the rail is going to be to the floor, calculated in an evening, I was tired, and I've inputted the wrong numbers, and I didn't realize it. So that's why the height of the acoustic curtain is way, way lower than where the rail is. Tragedy struck, and it was all my bloody fault. The curtains are the wrong size, lengthwise. They're super short, 60 centimeters short. And the reason why that happened was, I don't know what was in my head when I measured it, because I measured the height from the beam all the way to the ground, and it was like 2 meters 90. And then I went online and I looked at the rail and the grommets and the attachment and so on, and it was around 60 millimeters, right? So 60 millimeters from the joint to where the curtain is supposed to start. And then I was like, okay, well, I definitely don't need it 2 meters 90, the curtain, because then it will just drag on the floor, because there will be like 60 millimeters. But stupid me, I went in, and when I put the order, I put 2 meters 20, 2 meters 30. So instead of saying, oh, I need 60 millimeters less, I actually said I need 60 centimeters less.
Small mistake.
Very small mistake. I think this was probably the biggest fail in the construction so far. We had other things, like, for example, me not calculating how many pipes we need for the scaffold or other bits, but those are bits that, you can get additional stuff and fix it and so on. This is major, so we had to change plans. But I don't mind it. It might turn out to be a good decision, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of blackout studios out there. So it's nothing special that we would have offered with the ability to have a black curtain all around and so on. It will make it more flexible, but in the same time, it's the main focus of the studio is green screen virtual production. So, those are just gonna act as additional acoustic panels in a sense. We bought these from overseas. There was no returns. Rather than doing another order and trying to sell these and so on, we decided, well, sounds like they're really good in terms of absorption. Let's just use them. It doesn't matter that there's a bit of space. It already does a brilliant job at the absorption part. So we had to figure out and hack our way into a system where we have rods, extension rods with hooks that we hooked into the runners and then into the blankets, aka the curtains. Yeah, it's been a bit of a pain, but here we are. We managed to do it. We have, in terms of acoustic blankets, we have 3 in total on that wall and 3 on this wall, and they extend almost the entire width of the studio because there's 2 meters length each, and that was the max length that I could make them. So you have 6 meters on that wall and 6 meters on that one, and I actually have 3 more that I could extend. But again, I'm not going to use this as a blackout studio. There's no point. There are other blackout studios around. So I'm never going to need those other pieces. And who knows, maybe one day I'm going to replace them and have the curtains all the way up. But at the moment, there's no need. They do a brilliant job. So I'm going to keep them. So I've had quite a few filmmakers, professionals in the film industry come over and check the studio, and everyone's quite pleasantly surprised the fact that this joint is so quiet, there's not a lot of noises around, and also that it sounds so balanced in terms of the acoustics in here. You won't find a lot of studios in our area in the south of UK, especially in Brighton and Hove, that have this level of treatment. Added bonus for our studio here, because you can safely record audio in here without having to treat the reverberation and without having to cold cut a billion times in a day because there's cars or banging noises or people talking outside and you can't film. And that is massive. And I've been in places where that was happening, and it's so frustrating having to cut your flow because you're hearing noises in your headset. And then also all of our equipment is not super loud. We try to make sure that everything that we buy, from our crane, for gimbal, from our servers, that they're not ultra loud with fans and noises in terms of movement, mechanical movement and things like that. That's why we invested so much money into our equipment, in order to be able to have a rich studio in terms of what you can achieve in here, because there's a lot of amazing good tech, but also not in the detriment of not being able to record proper sound. And we did have a couple of switcheroos last minute as we were getting close to the launch with the Unreal Engine servers, which initially we had in this room in the studio. And we realized, man, this is too loud. You're not going to be able to record audio without, using AI to fix the audio. And we moved it in the other room. But we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode. This work was done quite early. The original lighting was done in the second half of January. And with lighting, we had so many back and forths that at one point we were quite concerned that we might not be able to launch in time because of delays. So if you want to see me relive the haunting moments of setting up the lighting, make sure that you again subscribe and come back next week for the next episode of how we built our virtual production studio.